Goodbye, John.
Comparison is definitely the crux of our generation, I would say. Like, we just fuck ourselves with comparison 24/7, 365. If it started as being an extension of self and kind of like a different version of myself, I think now it's kind of turning into the opposite. Like, it's turning into more so like me being able to be a truer form of myself, if that makes sense. You know, just if you want to do something, you just have to do it authentically. And if you do it authentically enough and with enough conviction, you know, people will like it.
People hate me when I'm a bad friend because you never know if I'm gonna be mad when you really gotta tell me if we'll be separate.
Hey, what's up? It's Huron John, and this is the Making of an Artist podcast.
I really can't take when you ignore me because I see your username is viewing my stories. But I love a good cry in the shower, like I love a quick goodbye, then I'm outer space. Cause I only ever travel in one direction. If I am allowed to be myself.
Welcome back to the Makings of an Artist podcast. My name is Sebastian Cowsill, and today we have the multi-talented artist from Chicago, Huron John. Man, thank you for being here today. How are you?
Hey, doing well.
Good, man. So, John, I know you do almost everything yourself. You write, you produce. I saw you even directed and edited a lot of your own music videos and stuff. But what was one of these first few talents that you did pick up, and how come?
I would say kind of just the history of doing everything on my own. I would say it was kind of picked up gradually, kind of facet by facet, I would say. Like, I've been playing instruments pretty much my whole life, you know, so the musical aspect of it was kind of a gradual process. But I remember back when I was like maybe like 10 or 11, like on our family desktop computer and shit, I was really like messing around a lot with iMovie and just like making little stupid videos and stuff, you know. So kind of the visual component of it was kind of began a while ago, you know. I remember I was really into graphic novels and like comic books when I was really young, like early elementary school. So I would like draw my own little comic books and shit, and that probably translates to like designing cover art and stuff. I guess it's kind of just a lot of individual pieces that have kind of just manifested themselves over time.
Mm-hmm. How come it was music that kind of took the forefront out of everything? You said you were editing movies and whatnot. What brought you to music, though?
I would say what brought me to music was definitely the results, I would say, were the most apparent, the quickest, I guess, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess just kind of throughout my whole childhood, you know, it was kind of this process of kind of trying to discover, you know, what my thing was per se, you know, with the help of my parents, of course, them kind of guiding me through a lot of different shit, whether it was, you know, like just like little league sports or whatever it was, you know, and just kind of not just having a maybe distaste is the right word, just not really seeing success in any of that stuff. So kind of them pushing me to do something, you know. It's like I remember I had this conversation with them when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I was just like, listen, man, like the sports thing it's not working. Like, you guys see I'm not having fun. You see I'm not that good at it. Like, you know, it's like, I know that I'm not that good at it. Like, what's going on here? So yeah, they said that I could start taking guitar lessons. And I guess that was, I saw a lot of kind of like natural love for that instrument very quickly. So I guess the preference of music kind of taking the forefront, that was just a pretty quick process, I would say.
Now, I saw you said one of your early influencers was actually your guitar teacher, and that your teacher exposed you to a whole world of music that you really had no clue about beforehand. Who exactly were these artists and albums that you discovered through them?
Yeah, so huge shout out to my first guitar teacher. He is an excellent dude. He actually stopped teaching guitar kind of right after I stopped taking lessons, and he became a special needs teacher. So he's a solid ass dude. Love that man. What's up, Tony? If you ever hear this, hi. But anyway, so yeah, kind of like the weird routine, I guess, sort of was, you know, me being like fucking like 7 years old. I would show up every lesson, every day of the week, every weekday. And I would want the kind of how our lessons would work is I would want to learn a song. I would bring him a song. It would always be me telling him, kind of what I wanted to learn versus him kind of teaching me stuff. So that was kind of like the dynamic there. So basically, like every day I would come in with a new, pretty much it was always Led Zeppelin, which is just like super cringy. Kind of every day was a new Led Zeppelin track or some sort of classic rock thing, like that any kind of young guy would gravitate towards, for sure. But so we kind of go through this maybe a year or so of just like pure monotony of him teaching me these songs over and over and over and over again. And I could tell that he began to get frustrated, as he should have. So kind of one day I remember this so vividly, and he was like, pretty much basically what he said was, like, oh, is this all you listen to? Like, is this the only type of thing that you're exploring? And I was like, I mean, yeah, it kind of is all that I listen to, just because I don't really know, I didn't know what else was out there. This was like the internet was not really a thing. Well, like it was a thing, obviously, but, kids my age weren't on it. And just kind of that type of thing. So he told me that next lesson he would bring me a CD that he thought that I would really like and that he thought would kind of open up a new kind of, just like a new way for me to look at music, I guess. So the next lesson, I come back and he brought me this one CD. He gave it to me. I took it, whatever. I didn't really look at it. It wasn't really like, it didn't like draw me in immediately, I guess, like a lot of other albums have. But I remember my mom picked me up. We went to the grocery store for some reason. It was like 7 p.m. and she went in and I stayed in the car. And then I popped in this CD. And immediately the first track, it was this like piano orchestral song. And I was immediately like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is nuts. And it immediately drew me in instantly, kind of the musical side of it. And then I opened up the booklet and I saw all these illustrations and the graphic art. It was a lot of paintings that were kind of inside the album booklet and all the different little pictures done by the album artists and all that type of thing. And yeah, I just fell in love with this album. Absolutely. I became completely obsessed with it. And that album was Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness by the Smashing Pumpkins. And that's my favorite album of all time. It forever will be. Love that shit. They're my favorite band ever. But yeah, pretty much just him showing me that CD, that just like opened up a whole nother world for me, especially kind of based off how, I obviously don't expect, every person to be familiar with that entire album. It's 24 songs long. Like it's definitely kind of a hard pill to swallow for some people. But one thing that really I loved about it was the diversity. Like there were these, almost like speed metal songs, and then it went into these acoustic dream pop ballads, and then it went into electronic music, and it was just all over the place. And it really kind of shattered the bubble of what I thought music was, because I was really coming from this kind of, like mid to late 70s classic rock little bubble, and I didn't really know that there was much else out there. So yeah, that was definitely a huge cornerstone.
Very cool. You say Led Zeppelin's kind of cringy, but I definitely was not listening to that at 7 years old. That's for sure. It's impressive.
Yeah, I guess it's definitely the I owe it all to Guitar Hero, man. They put me onto all that shit.
Fair enough. I think I saw you said that kind of discovering this new world really entranced you and really made you want to do your own thing. What was it about these discoveries that encouraged you to pursue your own thing further?
I think kind of what the thing was for me was like, yeah, I loved music, obviously. I loved playing guitar. I didn't get into songwriting until maybe like, well, I would say I didn't get into songwriting first. I got into producing first, but I didn't get into like actually making my own music till maybe 13 or so. And I would say it's not that I was obsessed with the idea of becoming a musician, I would say, but I would look at all these people that I idolized, whether it was when I was really young or now, like I would look at, Billy Corgan from the Pumpkins, or I would look at, my huge like Tyler the Creator phase, or, like the Kanyes or the Kevin Parkers or whoever it was, just like the people that I completely idolize. It was more so that I became very attached to them as personalities, I would say, like maybe characters, like cartoon characters almost. And that kind of, it was more so a want to kind of form this caricature of my own, like I would be looking at all these other artists who were kind of building these just huge overarching narratives, just doing all this shit, especially with someone like Kanye or Tyler. And that just kind of really sparked interest in me. I guess, to kind of just build my own story, I would say, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. When was it that you actually did take these first few steps to building your own world?
I would say probably when I got into producing, maybe around age well, I got into producing at like 12, 13, and then I would say I really got into it maybe around like 14, 15. I think kind of maybe the first steps that I took, towards like world building or kind of narrative building or whatever that may be, is I wrote like 3 albums when I was like 15, and like of course none of them ever saw the light of day, and they were pretty shit in retrospect. But I was really into still am, not that I was, but I still am, always will be. I'm really into concept albums. I love albums that are either, linear stories, or they have, a giant overarching theme, like the To Pimp a Butterflies, the dark fantasies, like all that type of shit. That stuff like really attracted me. So I definitely, like, when I was younger, kind of writing those whatever quote unquote album style projects, I was like making up all these characters and kind of like, oh, what happens with them and what do they do and shit like that. And then of course I would write up all these little like corny rap lyrics and then try to work it out in GarageBand, and it never really got there, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. When was it in your ethos that you started feeling confident in what you were doing and wanted to show yourself to the world?
I don't know. That's a really difficult to pinpoint that on one moment. Because I think I released my first actual music when I was 17, my junior year of high school, and it was like this weird kind of like alternative rap album. It's under a different name, and like if you know, you can go out to the people listening. Like if you know what it is, you can go find it. But maybe that was the first point. But I don't know. It's tough to say because I still was very, not that I was self-conscious, but I was just very scared that it's not that other people weren't going to get what I was doing, but they weren't going to try to get it. And therefore, with them not trying to understand, that would lead to misunderstanding, and misunderstanding would lead to ridicule, I guess. And kind of me being younger and kind of more thin-skinned, I would say, that was definitely a worry for me. It's like when I would walk into history class, like my junior year of high school, like what if everyone thinks my music sucks? Like then what's going to happen for like the 4 fucking varsity football players that sit around me? Like, are they going to make fun of me? Like, what's going to happen? So I think definitely that was a big thing. I would say my like musical confidence, like real confidence in being like, okay, like what I do is valuable. People like it, and I'm proud of this. I would say that really didn't start happening until like maybe like mid to late 2018.
Mm-hmm. When you created the moniker, is that kind of a reason that you did? Is because you kind of wanted, in a way, to hide behind that?
I don't know if hide behind is the right phrasing. I would say maybe more so to kind of make it like an extension of me, if that makes sense. Well, like one reason that I actually made like the Huron John moniker was because like I was referring to that kind of like alternative rap album shit that I made, and like that was under a completely different name. And like that project was cool, and I was really proud of it, and it was kind of my first offering, to the world. And it was a really big deal to me. That was my first time ever recording vocals or like trying mixing or mastering, and just fucking putting on a blindfold and stumbling through this shit completely. But, just in terms of like the sound, I didn't really think that it stuck. So like, yeah, I really felt that if I wanted to do a very drastic change in sound, which I did, kind of the move from that old project to the Huron shit, like I wanted to, change the name, of course. But I would say definitely, after actually changing the name, yeah, I would say that it was definitely more of kind of an extension of self, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if you're familiar, but I was really, really into the show Yu-Gi-Oh! When I was a young kid, really into that shit. Just like the anime and the trading cards and all that. And I was really, really in love with this concept of in the TV, like in the anime, when it was this little kid, Yugi, and he's like this little, like, meek ass kid. He's like 4 feet tall. He's just like weak as fuck. Like everybody fucks with him. Like he just can do nothing. Like he gets bullied. He gets whatever, this, that, and the other. And then it's like when he, really, when he gets into this zone or whatever, like the magical shit goes down, whatever the storyline was, he turns into this like, this like huge, just like powerful, badass dude. And I was like, damn, like that's a really sick concept, So maybe that's kind of what I was going for in the beginning.
Yeah.
I guess, but I think now it's kind of, I think if it started as being an extension of self and kind of like a different version of myself, I think now it's kind of turning into the opposite. Like it's turning into more so like me being able to be a truer form of myself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
What were those first few exciting moments for you when you did start to feel like that big magical badass?
I think definitely probably one of the first kind of times that I was really kind of feeling like that was definitely when I first came to college, because that was like, fall 2018, and I came to the school that I go to, and I met like two of the dudes who like ended up being, in this kind of group of best friends. Like I met two of them much earlier than I met, kind of the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it was the three of us, and we were like sitting down just eating at this like food spot on campus. And this was like maybe a week into the school year starting. So this is like early August still. And the one dude, he was like talking to me about how like he actually like knew my music like before we got to school, and like he thought it was really cool, kind of like the way I was displaying it and like the visuals and stuff like that. And I knew little to not, like now I live with this kid now and I fucking love him to death. But, I really did not know, like at the time it was a really weird feeling just because I was like, fuck, like I really don't know this kid right now. And he like thinks my music is cool. So that, that really kind of, that made me feel really, really sick, because kind of beforehand, just me kind of, at the time I only had like 150 like listeners a month. Like it really was not shit. And I think that was really cool, especially because, kind of where I was coming from. Like I'm coming from my hometown, where basically the only people supporting my music is people that I know in real life. Like
Mm-hmm.
the only people that were like really backing my shit was all my friends from high school and like a couple other kids that I knew from around the area. And like, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's awesome, to be able to even say that I was, blessed enough to have a cool network of friends that wanted to, believe in what I was doing. But definitely that moment of having someone else that I just did not know whatsoever, like approach me about it, at the time I was like, okay, this makes me feel really cool.
That's a really cool story, man. And I already know the answer to this next question, but you're in college, right?
Correct.
How exactly do you manage being an artist, traveling around, playing shows and whatnot, working on your own brand, your own craft, while also being a college student and balancing everything that comes with that as well?
It's hard, dude. It's definitely not easy, but also, it's hard in a fun way. Like I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't enjoy doing it. It's my favorite thing in life, kind of cultivating this whole artist project and this music and the kind of the visual world that it sits in, and just, the overarching narrative and just kind of everything. It's obviously I really enjoy it, or else I wouldn't be doing it. But definitely balancing it all, especially with academics, it can get tough. Definitely I have been pretty guilty of kind of letting the music take a front seat over the academics. And that's okay, as long as you make sure you got like your ducks in a row and shit, and you make sure you have all your responsibilities handled, I guess it's fine. But I don't know, sometimes it gets really frustrating. Sometimes I just feel like it's just a lot to juggle on my own, and kind of just especially with kind of recently getting hooked up with management and like an attorney and all that stuff. Like it's starting to get to the stage where certain things that I just don't want to deal with are starting to be taken off my shoulders, I guess. And that's a really great feeling, but yeah, I mean, I guess kind of the philosophy behind it of just when I would get frustrated over, academics and music shit just piling up and just feeling like, overwhelmed, because definitely I'm a person who imposes a lot of unnecessary deadlines and expectations on myself, for sure. Like I would be, like I would tell myself like, oh, this song's gotta be fucking done by Tuesday, or else like people are going to be pissed. Meanwhile, like no one on the planet even knows that the song exists. So just like totally just kind of ridiculous, like introspective thoughts and deadlines and expectations and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. It's definitely tough to balance, but at the end of the day, I think the passion and the love for it is what kind of carries me through,
Mm-hmm. What are you majoring in, if you don't mind me asking? Is it related to your music in any way?
Yeah, it is music business with a legal emphasis.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of, still in that world, but yeah, it's not exactly the most, creative major. Like you see music in the title of the major, but still it's like it's a typical business degree, so it's a lot of that type of shit. Like, like I took fucking accounting like last year, like that shit sucked. Like I, like stats and fucking like quant business methods and just all that bullshit. So like, it is what it is though. I really do I think definitely getting the degree is for sure important to me. I think, it's like I'm deep enough into it already, so why quit?
Just a couple more questions we like to ask everybody on here. The first is, what advice would you give to artists trying to make it today?
That's an interesting one. I think definitely kind of the main lesson that I've learned, I would say, throughout all of this is that you just need to accept that your path is your path, if that makes sense. I would say definitely kind of in like this internet era, where it's like everybody's accomplishments are, viewable. Like I can see, everyone shows the great shit that they do, but no one shows their failures, and like I'm guilty of that myself. And I would say definitely kind of in this type of environment where I can go on Spotify and everybody's, day by day metrics are updating, every fucking day. I can see exactly how many listeners you've had this month. I can see, what playlists you're on. I can see your follower count. I can see what your, what your Instagram is doing, your, all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say definitely it's kind of a blessing, mostly a curse. And kind of with that type of shit is for artists, especially whether you're a musician or a filmmaker, or you want to make clothes, or you want to be a photographer or whatever, comparison is definitely the crux of our generation. I would say, like, we just fuck ourselves with comparison 24/7, 365. So I would say definitely if you're trying to be a musician, you need to know persistence for one, and two, your path is your path. Just because, there was some guy in your high school class who makes music too, and his song, blew up on SoundCloud or whatever, and yours didn't, don't think that means that you're shit. It just means that your time hasn't come yet. And as long as you're trying hard enough and you're, really putting yourself into it 110%, and you just keep throwing darts at the board, and, if an idea isn't working, you try a new one, and you fucking rinse and repeat. As long as you kind of follow those blueprints, I would say that everything will work out in the end.
Wise words, man. Wise words.
Thank you.
My second question is all about why you're here today. By the time this episode hits all major, your new full project will have just hit the airwaves.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about it, man?
Yeah. So this project, it's called Apocalypse Wow, for anybody listening, like the movie, but with a wow at the end. I know it's super clever, but I would say definitely this is kind of my first long form project. It's 33 minutes, I believe. Whereas, my second long, I have 2 4-song EPs that are out, and they're like 14 minutes each. And this one is 9 songs. It's like 35 minutes, so definitely that is a huge step in a direction for me, because I've always wanted to be a project artist. I've always wanted to be like an album oriented guy, especially because I see kind of in the indie landscape, it's very single focused. And of course, there's good reason for that. And, I'm not going to be like a hypocrite and be like, fuck singles, because it's like I've got like 5 singles that are out, in the past year and a half. So, that's definitely a thing. But I think this project is extremely important to me emotionally, because I would say that definitely this project is the first step that I've taken in the direction of where I want to go, if that makes sense. Like, of course, all the releases that I've done up to this point, I've wanted to make that music and I've wanted to share it and put it out there, of course, and that's great. But I don't think that by making all of those songs, like making like silly ass little, bedroom songs like Friend Zone or whatever it may be. Like, yeah, it's like a cute little song, and like, whoever the fuck can enjoy it. And that's great. And I'm, super happy that people do enjoy it. Um, but that song wasn't helping me deliver the message that I have dreamed of delivering, if that makes sense. And I think this project is really the first time that I've really gotten to dive deep into lyrical substance and really just kind of put it all out there on the table. Like the last song on the project, it's called Use the Birth for All It's Worth. And it's like a 5-minute long rap song of just me rapping the whole time. And I have not one single song in my entire discography like that. And it's just me rapping for 5 minutes about the most like intimate shit. And I was like very, very, very afraid to make that song just because like, not to be like leading everybody on and like, oh, listen to it. It's so mysterious. But I was really afraid to say a lot of the shit that I said in that song just because if certain family members or friends or, ex-girlfriends or teachers or people like that, heard some of the lyrics that I was saying kind of directly referencing them, it would be awkward and uncomfortable. But I feel like this project for sure is kind of the first time that I've been able to really say what I wanted to say without compromise. And it's been really empowering to, kind of see how well people have been receiving all the singles, and we've been releasing it in volumes. So like volume 1 was the first 3 songs and volume 2 was the second 3 songs and so on. And then the actual full length release will be just like the full 9 songs. But yeah, that's been a really empowering process. And I think definitely it's just been, it's been kind of the first time that I've stepped onto the path of where I really of like the like the real end game, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
What is the message you're trying to get across with this project?
Well, that's kind of funny because it's like, I just talk so much about message, but I don't think that this project has one kind of set message.
Yeah.
But I would say definitely kind of the overarching theme of it is definitely growing up. Like the title Apocalypse Wow, I tell everybody that it's kind of like a double kind of word mirror, I guess. It's like the word the apocalypse, it's like the end of the world, and then you look at the word wow, and that's connotated with meanings of like, oh, wonder, and you're oh fuck, like this is awesome or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of viewed the whole album as the lyrics, definitely the main theme for sure is kind of growing up and the confusion of that. And kind of the rationale, I guess, was sort of like the apocalypse is it's like when you're growing up, it might, whether you're, a young dude becoming a man or you're a young, girl becoming a woman or whatever the fuck it may be, it's like you look at it kind of like your world is ending a little bit, like the apocalypse, like you're starting to, your world views are changing, your political views, the way you view your family, the way that you view yourself, the way you view money, the way you look at memories from your childhood, the way that you look at friends, the way that you're able to trust people and form relationships and academic responsibilities and finding a job and paying your bills and just like so much shit. And it's just kind of like that very abrupt transition. I feel like especially, kind of like in this internet age that we're in, we are forced to our transition from childhood to adulthood is very choppy and it's very abrupt kind of because of all this social media and kind of this fucking just like information overload. But then it's like you look at the wow, and it's like when you grow up, this is a cool process. This is a beautiful process too. It's like you're able to have new life experiences and kind of live in a way that you weren't able to when you were a child. So that's kind of the overarching meaning of it, I guess, and kind of just more so accepting it. Because yeah, definitely for me it kind of took me a while to accept the fact that like, hey, life is changing, but I think definitely this project that's a big part of it for sure.
Mm-hmm. What were some things you learned along the way in making this project? Because it seems like one with a lot of themes that would be very exposing to yourself as well.
I would say definitely some stuff that I've learned. Well, like, do you mean more kind of within the process of personally or like making music wise?
Personally and musically, both, yeah.
Okay. So I'll just say personally first. Definitely this project to me was a huge turning point in kind of how I view myself and self-confidence, I would say. Like the process of kind of being in like spring 2019, like a year ago, really, and kind of because that's when I started this project, and then I finished it in October 2019, and kind of like realizing, well, not even realizing, but questioning, like, okay, I've released a bunch of singles. I released this, silly little like friend zone love song, and like, people seem to be fucking with it, but now what the fuck do I do? It's like, do I make another one, or do I have to keep making really silly kind of juvenile cartoony songs like this, or do I move forward? Do I get more substantive? Will people not like that? Like, just a whole kind of tornado of self-doubts and questions kind of in my own head. So I think definitely this project personally really taught me that you just got to trust your gut and make what you want to make, because really, if it is authentic, whether not even music, whether you're starting a business, or you are making music, or you're just doing whatever the fuck you want to do, I think this project definitely made me realize that if you want to do something, kind of as overstated as it is just by everybody, just if you want to do something, you just have to do it authentically. And if you do it authentically enough and with enough conviction, people will like it, kind of that type of thing. But then I'd say musically, what I learned, definitely this project helped me learn a lot about my songwriting process. This album was definitely kind of the first time that I've really come out of my box vocally. I would say I did a lot. A lot of the songs on this project, I did a lot of things vocally that I was kind of afraid to do before. Kind of get more passionate with my singing, because definitely before, with songs like Little League or shit like that in particular, like my vocals, it's very kind of that monotone, like spoken word thing, but it's like a little bit melodic in song, but not really. And I would say definitely this project, that was a huge part of it, was me getting way more comfortable with my voice, for sure. I don't know what else. I guess a big lesson that I learned was maybe this project really showed me how to walk the line between knowing what people want to hear and also knowing how to give them that, but also keep it fresh and try new things and try new styles and take risks. I think definitely I wanted to make this project very unique, but very accessible. Like, I wanted to make it have a very unique feeling in the sense of there's a lot of different styles on the project. Like, you got, the second song, Honor Tribe, which is this just like very bass heavy, like funk R&B type shit. Whereas like the fourth track, Death by Flying Saucer, it's this very robotic kind of more electronic, tinged kind of thing. And then the fifth song, Why Do People Grow? It's like, it was really influenced by The Cure and New Order, kind of that 80s kind of Brit rock type shit. And then like the last song, that like 5-minute rap track I was talking about, my one friend told me it sounds kind of like M83, like shit like that. So just kind of really trying to move in a lot of different directions stylistically, while still keeping it very accessible for everybody. That's always been a really important thing to me, is accessibility.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. You really sold me on the album, for sure.
Hey, hopefully you like it, man.
Well, whatever this does end up sounding like, I'm very excited to tune in. I know we all are, to hear it. But thank you for taking the time to come on the show, man. It means a lot.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Been a fan for a minute now. For sure.
Thank you.
If people want to find you online, where can they go?
The only real kind of social media app that I'm pretty active on is Instagram, I would say. Just the name for that, it's just HuronJohnny, Huron Johnny, all one word. The fucking Huron John handle, it was taken, so I had to get a little bit creative. Just on YouTube, you can look me up. It's just Huron John still, the channel. I've got the first time that I was kind of uploading to YouTube was this Apocalypse Wow project. So I've got 3 visuals for this project up there. You can check that out. But really kind of, I don't use Twitter. Fuck Twitter. Fuck Facebook. Really, I'm only pretty much on Instagram and YouTube. So yeah, you can find me there. Oh, and my website. It's huronjohn.co, not com, but co.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Awesome. Well, everyone go check him out there. Go stream his new work, Apocalypse Wow, on whatever you get your music on, and support this amazing up-and-comer. And again, man, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me. I had a good time.
Of course, man. Thank you.
See ya. Again, thank you to Huron John for coming onto the show. He really is incredibly nice and very well spoken, and is one of the most unique and fun artists in the indie scene right now. One of my favorites for sure. But don't forget to subscribe, follow us on social media, throw us some downloads on this episode, and ratings on iTunes. Become a member of our Patreon as well to get these episodes a week early, as well as other perks like monthly bonus episodes, behind the scene looks, and more. So go check that out on our Patreon today at patreon.com/MOAA. As always though, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.